Let me understand this a little bit better from the standpoint of the millions of people out there who have probably seen Who Killed the Electric Car. This whole thing, obviously it starts a century before at some level with Henry Ford and Edison and so forth. But more recently, this seems to me to have been about a kind of fits and starts approach from the OEMs, say a GM with the Impact, the EV1 in the 90s, famously killing the project, now embracing this in the form of the Chevy Volt. What's going on this? Are we to believe that there's, first of all, let's take us back to the 90s. What happened then with the electric car being created and ultimately killed?
Well, there's several theories about that, but I think to really understand it, you need to go all the way back to the turn of the century, just after 1900, when America was transitioning from horse and buggy transportation to the automobile. Not many people realize, but in 1912, there were more electric vehicles on the road than there were internal combustion engine vehicles. The reason was women especially really liked electric vehicles. You didn't have to crank to start them. Right. They were quiet, they were clean, and they didn't scare the cows. But the internal combustion engines, to get started, you had to reach down, grab that crank the engine, get it started, and there were many, many broken arms associated with the kickback. So, but as time progressed, the thing that killed the electric vehicle in the early teens was the starter motor. Somebody came up with a concept of an electric motor you could put on a gasoline engine, apply a current to it, start the gas engine, disconnect the electric motor, and the engine was off and running. And it also had to do with range and availability of batteries. So we emerged into the internal combustion engine. Well, let's fast forward 90 years, yes, and we're in the 90s now, and we're talking about electric transportation for a different motivation. And that motivation is clean air, okay? Bottom line, whether you're running a Cadillac or you're running a Geo, Metro, for every gallon of gas you put through an internal combustion engine vehicle, and a gallon of gas weighs 6.5 pounds, you create 25 pounds of air pollution. Now, if you only have 100,000 vehicles in the country, it doesn't matter. But we have 215 million vehicles in America today. So you take 215 times the gallons they burn, we're pumping a lot of dirt, if you will, into the air. So this trend in the 90s was, how do we get away from the internal combustion engine into an electric? A number of car companies had developments, and as you said, the EV1 was coming out. Chrysler, which I'll talk about a little bit more, had an electric minivan, and Ford had an electric pickup. So they believed that electric transportation would work, but there were several factors that were killing it. And to me, the most basic factor had to do with their business model.